10x your service design offering with Smaply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smaply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smaply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of This Is HCD. My name is Gerry and I'm a human-centered service design practitioner based in Dublin City, Ireland. And today on the show, we've got Allen Bobinac. Allen is the most remarkable person that I've spoken to in a very, very long time. He runs the Lighthouse Café, which is a centre for people suffering with addiction and homelessness. This is a bit of an unusual episode for us because it's a start of what John Thacker correctly pointed out on LinkedIn called a plod pod, where I want to try and do more walking podcasts. So you're going to be seeing us walking through Dublin City from Stephen's Green, for anyone who knows Dublin. And what makes this as a special starting point is Allen actually was homeless for a long time in Dublin and lived in Stephen's Green and slept rough before meeting one of the most remarkable senators that I've ever met, called Senator Aubrey McCarthy, who is the founder of Tiglin and basically has helped Allen on his journey along with his brother Jay. And we're going to be talking a lot more, and we're going to end up at the podcast, at the very end of the podcast, should I say, at Tiglin in the Lighthouse Centre in Pearse Street in Dublin. So there's three things that really hit me in this episode. And the first one was the lived experience as leadership. Now, his journey from the streets to management really shows how powerful it is to have people with real lived experience shaping those services. The second point is designing for dignity. We call this out quite a lot in the episode. The Lighthouse Cafe isn't just for food or shelter. It's really for, it's a place, it's a solace. It's very, very warm. It's full of really kind people, and it's all about a sanctuary, so to speak, in the centre of Dublin City. And I love that. It's absolutely fantastic to see something like this thriving in the middle of Dublin City. And the third point is community is the secret sauce here. You'll see that there's people volunteering, like barbers, people donating their clothes, and people really helping the people who need it the most, okay? People who have more often than not asked for these situations. They've been placed in these situations and they need our help. So I really, really hope you see what I see when I see these experiences and how deeply rooted it is in the community. It's one that's going to stick with you. I did this episode a couple of weeks ago, and there hasn't been a day or probably an hour that goes by where I'm not reflecting on how remarkable Allen and Jay is, and also how Aubrey is as well, because we'll be doing another episode with them in the next couple of weeks as well. I know you're going to enjoy this, but it's a great example, one, to see Dublin, see Allen, and just speaking really openly. I hope you like the new format of a podcast. If you do, please leave a comment, get in touch. Otherwise, let's jump in. I know you're going to enjoy it. We're here in Stephen's Green, and we're going to come to that in a few minutes, Alan, talking about why we're centering ourselves at the start of this podcast here. But maybe for our listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do.
Starting to rain there.
Starting to rain.
So,
welcome to Dublin.
Yeah. So, I come from Croatia, from a small island called Kirk. And I have a twin brother as well.
Yeah.
So, we grew up in what I can describe as a broken home. And,
okay.
When we finished, I think, high school, the equivalent of a high school, there wasn't many opportunities there. And even since an early age, we always had plans about what we were going to do, when we reached 18. Because obviously when you look around, there's a lot of tourism, and I think things are better right now, but there certainly wasn't many opportunities. So in the summer of 2015, we managed a car park for a few weeks, and we saved up all the money. And then when we looked at it, that's everything that we had. And the next opportunity wasn't going to come by. Certainly in my head, wasn't going to come by for a long time.
Yeah.
And then we used that money. My brother went to the nearest city and he purchased a plane ticket and a tent. And then because I worked more hours than him, I was the one who was going to venture out into the world and kind of try to find work and try to do something with that money.
Yeah.
So in October of 2015, October 5th, I came to Ireland. I actually got off the bus not too far from here. and that was it. My mission was to find work,
Yeah.
and I would come here actually for the first maybe 10 days. I would sit just around the corner,
Right.
and actually Ireland has a very unique climate, as you know.
Yeah.
So I had a suitcase that I would drag around with me everywhere I went, and the nights are cold. They were cold back in the day, and then I would come here, and the sun would come up, and then you get a bit of a warmth, and then one day the sun stopped coming up, and then it didn't come up for the next I think certainly 9 months.
Yeah.
It was a very cloudy year that year.
So
and rainy.
To kind of surmise, like when you arrived here, you were homeless.
Yeah.
Into Ireland, and now you're working with Tiglin. Describe what Tiglin does for our listeners.
Well, Tiglin is a charity founded as a rehab center in 2008, and now it has 9 different centers that encompass mainly rehabs, aftercare, which is a big one, homeless work, and other kind of centers. Yeah. But it's rooted in addiction and homelessness.
Right. So it's not just a drop-in place to get a piece of food; it's a support center.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the life, maybe we're jumping a little bit here.
At Tiglin, generally, that's the purpose. Yeah. It's an infrastructure there to help people move ahead in their journey to step away from homelessness, move forward. Isn't that correct?
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
And let me tell you how we came across Tiglin, actually. So
let's keep walking.
Yeah. So every day I would go out, hand out my CVs. I would spend a lot of the time at the library, and the goal was to find work. And I didn't have anything to put on my CV back in the day, so you would just make up different things just to put them on the CV.
Yeah.
So it took me about 4 months. I was in touch with these recruitment agencies, and through one of them, I got a day's work with Keelings,
strawberry
that we talked about.
Yeah.
And I went there and I worked for a day, and after tax was deducted, I got 50 euros. So then I used that money to bring my brother here, my twin brother Jay. And then from there on, we were on the streets together, going to all these homeless services and looking for work. And we spent a lot of time here. Like, we could go all over this park, and we slept there. We slept here, we slept there, slept on the other side. Bandstand is next door, so everywhere.
What was it like in here at night? Like, I've never been in here after the gates are closed.
Right.
And I'm privileged to say that. Like, I'm lucky that I haven't faced the same situation that you have. But in here at night, were there other people sleeping at the same time?
Oh yeah, no. The way it works is, if you're looking at kind of the homeless world, it's an underworld. There's quite a few people on the street, and you get to know them all very quickly. And obviously, there's some you don't know. So when you're here in the evening, this place, there's a lot of people here.
It's a subculture.
I suppose you could put that label on it.
Yeah.
So one thing you always have to do is you have to sleep with other people. Now, when I first came, I didn't know anyone. And I didn't meet anyone, so it was just me. But when my brother later joined me, and as I got to know the people, you have an unspoken contract where even if I know you, but I don't know you, and we go and we sleep somewhere together in the same spot. That way you're safer in numbers. But there was so many occasions, even I remember here, there was 3 of us, and my brother woke up middle of the night, and there was a guy just walking around us and looking at us. And I mean, that's what happens. Even when you sleep on the street, people will still try to rob you, and there's a lot of that stuff going on.
You're very vulnerable.
You're very, very vulnerable, very exposed.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the life. That's the life.
100%. So, let's go back to, you mentioned there about getting your CVs ready and handing them out to shops and anywhere you could get work. Where were you finding access to those computers to print? Because that's a big thing for people who are homeless, getting access to the basic provisions to be able to help them get the step ahead.
Actually, the way I describe it is, when you live on the street in Ireland, in Dublin, you have everything you need besides a house. So
Okay.
if you need a computer, that's easy.
Library.
The library is just one of them. I would go there and I would spend an entire day there. So you do your stuff. You apply for jobs for 2 hours, but you're not gonna do it for 6 hours. Then you can do a bit of reading. You can use computers to for entertainment as well. So
That's okay.
It's quite easy to come across supports.
So, as regards other aspects of what you needed at that time when you and Jay were in the park and you were sleeping here at night, and you mentioned that it was getting cold. What did it look like? What services were available to you to be able to find a place to sleep? Were there people or services there that maybe helped you with blankets or tents? What does that look like currently at the moment? Like, what was available to you right back then?
Well, now you're getting into the nitty gritty of kind of the whole system.
Survival.
So there's maybe 5 different homeless services that you can use for food, for showers, for everything. In terms of getting a bed, everything goes through the city council. They call it the free phone. So you call that number and you get a bed for the night if there's any beds.
Okay.
Now,
did you avail of that service?
Oh yeah. But there's kind of a little bit more to it, because if you're talking about, just to be very direct, when you're talking about homeless services in Dublin, you're talking about drugs. So if you go there, it's very unique in a way that everyone is using drugs.
Okay.
And everyone has issues. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So it's not always nice places to stay.
Yeah.
Because even when you're inside, you have to keep your eyes open, and stuff goes missing. And
absolutely.
So in a sense, it's almost easier to stay outside.
Yeah.
Now, would you prefer to stay inside? Yes, you would, but beds don't always come your way.
Yeah.
And when they don't, it's no problem. You're used to it. You're used to sleeping outside.
Yeah.
So you just get by day by day.
So we mentioned Tiglin, and Tiglin's your employer at the moment.
Yeah.
How long have you been working with Tiglin?
Since 2018.
2018. Okay. So you 3 years there from when you arrived in Ireland to start and work with Tiglin.
Yeah.
In that period, how did you move ahead, moving out of the homeless phase and into the workforce?
So 6 months after being on the streets, I was working as a kitchen porter in West Dublin.
Okay.
So I would work during the day and during the night to kind of sleep outside, all that stuff. So everything changed quickly. So in August of 2016, we met Aubrey McCarthy, who recently became a senator.
That's right.
And Tiglin used to have this bus called the Lighthouse Café. They would go to every part of the city and they would engage with people living on the streets. And when he met us...
How did he meet you?
Well, he was driving the bus at the time. So he told us he was the bus driver.
Yeah.
And he was very friendly and kind of very engaging. And, for a few weeks, we didn't even know his name, but we would actually call him Jeremy because he reminded us of Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear. But
I love it.
And that's kind of the gig. What he tried to do is, engage with the people and see who has...
This way, yeah.
Yeah. See who's got potential, who you can help to get off the street. And I suppose he saw something in us. I don't think we kind of seemed like street people or anything like that. We were young guys who were very shy and needed a little bit of help. So he arranged for us to move into transitional housing with Tiglin.
Okay, Tiglin, is it? What do you say?
Transitional housing.
Okay.
What that is it's a housing model where you get to stay there for a year, and provided you're pursuing work and education and betterment, it gets extended.
Right.
So we started doing college. We took on every opportunity that came our way, and we've been doing that ever since. So education was one of those opportunities. So Tiglin, through this guy called Joe Collins, He was the head of lifelong learning at IT Carlo today. IT Carlo back in the day.
Yeah.
They came up with this model where anyone who is kind of in Tiglin's care can study with IT Carlo for free. So we started with smaller courses, and then ultimately we progressed to bigger and bigger courses. And then this year we graduated with our second master's. So there was
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What did you get your master's in?
Well, international relations and social studies.
Mike Flex.
Yeah.
Mike Flex. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's super relevant.
So why is that important? Because the system is structured to kind of allow people to pursue what they want to pursue, and everybody gets the same opportunity.
Yeah.
So if I did a master's with, now it's called Southeast Technological University.
Yeah.
Anyone with Tiglin can take those same steps and do the same thing.
Wow. Okay, that's so cool.
But education isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people go in other directions.
Yeah.
But over the years, there's been over 1,000 people who use this, use the service.
Can I ask you about the experience of learning then? So you're under Tiglin's care, and it's beautiful Irish weather here. It's the summertime, believe it or not. You're in Tiglin's care. How did you find studying, and what did that experience look like? You mentioned the library was there, you got access to computers, but was there something there that Tiglin offered that helped increase the chances of completing the course? Was there any support network there within the frameworks?
Well, if you're talking about studying,
finding space.
Provided you ask for help, they give you whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you need extra kind of tutoring, all these supports are in all these institutions.
Right.
Fantastic. And Tiglin kind of took care of the housing bit, and everything else was smooth sailing, let's say.
Yeah. So
as long as you put in the effort, things work out.
So you were at that stage for those 3 years, you were learning and educating and availing those services to, I guess, improve the likelihood of finding a job. How did you start the conversations with Aubrey that led to you working for Tiglin, you and Jay?
Well, I suppose it was organic enough. But they have what's called a community employment scheme.
Yeah.
In a sense, what that is, it's back to work scheme.
Right.
And at the minute, I think they have the largest community employment scheme in the country. Don't know how many individuals, maybe 150 or something like that.
Yeah.
So what that is a person joins the scheme. They work in all these various centers, various different roles.
Yeah.
But while they're pursuing that, they have to kind of focus on getting upskilled. Education is one of those things.
Yeah.
And the goal is to take a person, and rather to use them for lifting boxes and manual labor, you kind of try to give them a certain skill set that can be used later down the road.
Okay.
So the focus is really upskilling people, and it's not for them to stay at Tiglin. That's not the goal. The goal is, can you help them, build them up, and then they can go out in the world and they can they can work in any sector they want.
You mentioned the Glen. The Glen, is that the name of the transitional housing?
No, not the Glen. It's in Dublin 8, next to the forecourts.
Okay.
It's called Chancery Place.
Chancery Place. Okay, yeah. I know it as that.
Yeah.
So how long were you in the Glen then? How long were you living there?
We were there for a couple of years. Yeah, yeah.
And what was that experience like?
Yeah, well, it's you get to live there, and obviously for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
So you pay your weekly contribution, and so you're not really stressed over bills or anything like that. Now, and that kind of allows you to do kind of whatever you're pursuing without feeling the stress of, oh, I'm gonna have to move out, or I have to pay crazy money, because obviously if you live in Dublin at the minute,
it's crazy money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And when you're starting out, and let's say you're just gotten off the street, and you're not really in the best job, or you don't have that many avenues to take.
Yeah.
How will you afford to live in anywhere?
Yeah.
You won't, because, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the homeless kind of world in Dublin, I mean, close to 100% of people, as far as I can see, they end up living in what's called emergency accommodation.
Yeah.
Homeless hostels would be unofficial term.
Mm.
And I was telling you, as I was telling you before, there's a lot of dysfunction, there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of messing.
Yeah, a lot of problems.
So what happens is you try to do something good. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about
Generally,
a
yeah.
random individual. Now you get off the street, and now you're faced with all these problems that you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So when you take a person away from that world and you put them somewhere else, in Tiglin, for example, then it allows you time to develop.
Absolutely. So I'm thinking about Tiglin. I'm thinking about, the role that Aubrey has played in your life. You mentioned that he was driving the bus. He was very hands-on in the early days of Tiglin. I know Tiglin from my work with Dublin City Council. I'd love to understand how Dublin City Council, where you saw them fitting into your kind of roadmap to move ahead out of the homeless phase of your life and into the next stages. What other services other than Tiglin were you able to avail of?
Well, as I was telling you, there's you have the Caption Day Center, you have the Mendicity, who've been great.
Yeah.
Merchant Ski, obviously.
Yeah.
But like I said, they do help people with CVs and stuff like that. But ultimately, it isn't as comprehensive as Tiglin would be.
Yeah.
Because
why do you think that is?
Well, I have to say it is because of Aubrey.
Yeah.
And he's assembled a team around him over the years, and not me and Jay. We have our ideas as well, and it's worked brilliantly. And he's got his own story, kind of, and it's about seeing things on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Rarely things are black and white.
100%.
And he's developed many different businesses, and he's been he's a successful person. So he just took on that approach, that mindset, and he approached it to I suppose a social impact. I suppose that's how you would call it, maybe.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's working, and it's not always people in addiction, but for the most part, you are working with people in addiction.
Yeah.
And it's like I have no kind of previous understanding maybe of addiction, but when I see a person who I know from the streets and the way they act, and then you see them after rehab and now they're doing everything else, it's two different people.
Yeah.
And Aubrey's background kind of involves maybe let's say addiction in the family.
Yeah.
And that's what drives him as well. But when you see one person before and after Tiglin, you can't really compare the people.
Okay.
So, and addiction is a big problem in Ireland, obviously. I mean, you can't miss it.
Yeah.
And let's say there's 100,000 people. Let's say, I'm just making up a number, 100,000 people in addiction. If you can get those people out and kind of bring them back to becoming
less
kind
addicted.
Not less addicted. I mean, contributing members of society. You're really saving. It's not just one life. By doing that for one person, it has a ripple effect on everyone around them.
Oh, yeah.
And also look at the amount of resources you're saving as well. Then
it makes sense.
It's all surplus in a sense.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned there about Aubrey being critical in terms of Tiglin's success. I mentioned when I first met you, that you and Jay, when I Googled Tiglin and I'd heard about your story in the Irish Times, you and Jay were the face of it. Of like, you've been interviewed and stuff. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but you were the first face that I saw. How important is it that you are able to draw on your own personal life experience when you're working within Tiglin? because some other organizations out there might be listening and they might not value that as much as they probably should. And I'm keen to hear and get your perspective on what value you bring having that life experience of being homeless.
Okay, well, if you're talking about if you're talking about homelessness, it's such a tough world and such a tough sector.
Yeah.
So really, you want to people who have a kind of a good perspective, people who have been through the system,
Yeah.
through that world, because only then you know what people need, and you, because when I was on the streets, there's certain things that I didn't have, and when I started working with Tiglin, that was the things I focused on.
Yeah.
Because the system, the system in a sense is ones and zeros. It doesn't account for people and for their needs or anything like that. But when you get the right people in there, and there's so many names I can bring up.
Yeah.
You know, Edie, for example, she works in the Lighthouse and she gets all the women into treatment to the female to the women's center. And the way she talks to people, she knows what to say. She's the right person for it. Then you have the two guys who manage the team leads in the Lighthouse, Robert and David. If you were to build a person to work there and do that role, you would build them. And there's just in the Lighthouse. Beyond that, there's so many other people that you can bring up, and they are in the right place. So when you're talking about this sector, it's very critical to find the right person.
100%.
Because you get the wrong person, you'll get set back by miles.
Yeah. Talk to me about the Lighthouse. You manage the Lighthouse or the Lighthouse.
Yeah.
So tell us what its purpose is.
Well, it's open 7 days a week, first of all.
Yeah.
Day and night. So you have the afternoon and the evening service. And first and foremost, it has a cafe, homeless cafe, and you're feeding kind of people. Beyond that, I'll tell you how I contributed to the Lighthouse and why that's important. So when I was in the street, there was no place to relax, for example.
Yeah.
You're always on the move, and you can't really stop or watch television or sit down or anything like that. So I came up with my approach was to create a living room for those in need of one. So I introduced music, live music, and that always. So let's say you're on the street all day and it's raining and it's wet, and you come into the Lighthouse and there's all this food, there's live music, and it's like being in the best place you can imagine. So it has a huge ripple effect. Oh yeah. Bingo nights, movie nights. We have culture nights. The embassies, for example, they organize for food, for music, for decorations, for everything. So it's a celebration then. Miss Ireland came down a few weeks ago, and she styled the women. So and that's just some of the things I introduced.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Because when you're helping a person who's on the street, rarely you're gonna meet them once, and that's it. You get them off the street, and everything's doing well. It takes weeks, it takes months, sometimes years of consistent engagement. So by creating all this buzz around the place, people keep coming back.
Yeah.
And as they keep coming back, you get to know them personally. And then myself and all these individuals that I was talking about a few minutes ago, they can push them in the right direction.
Nice.
So they can push them to rehabs, or they can push them into, housing and different things. And only then you had an impact.
How do you measure that impact?
It's very hard to measure, because when you take off one person off the street, 2 new people will end up on the street. So when you're there, the queue isn't getting smaller, it's getting bigger.
Yeah.
But you kind of know, you know people you've helped, And a lot of the times they end up, if not working with you, they end up helping in some shape or form.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, at the end of the day, those people also serve as examples, because if you live with someone on the street and now you see them working in the lighthouse and doing well, it gives you the blueprint of what to do.
Yeah. We're just passing, coincidentally, the Irish government.
Yeah.
The headquarters of the Irish government. How do you feel the Irish government is working to support the infrastructure for homelessness? Like, what are you hoping to see more of in the next couple of years as regards to government supports for services like Tiglin?
Well, I think obviously there's a big housing crisis and all that.
Yeah.
And this is beyond me or anyone else on the ground. But from what I can see is you have places like Tiglin who are obviously doing, I suppose, fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
And because people end up on the streets for various different reasons, and 90% of the time it's going to be addiction or it's going to be trauma. So if they can only support places like that, it would have a big effect. And I suppose, like I was telling you before, this isn't black and white. This isn't about feeding people. It has to be a very comprehensive approach.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's very tough. It's a very big task. Yeah. And I only see the side of the people who kind of trickle down onto the streets.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, everybody has a story, and maybe I'm not the best to talk about this.
That's all right. It's exactly what we're looking to hear. We're looking to understand your own perspective because you're in the field.
Yeah.
You're in the world of this stuff.
But
can I just go back to measuring impact? So getting people into a safe surrounds is probably the key goal. Yeah. Getting them out of vulnerability and into somewhere where they feel safe and secure and respected and seen and heard. They're all things that Tiglin do. You see them as individuals, you bring them in, you give them, love and warmth effectively. Really, really important. As regards other stuff that's maybe outside of your ecosystem, if you want, what other partners do you have to partner with as regards Tiglin to help get that outcome?
Well, I suppose one of the things that I see working in Greystones, where the aftercare houses is the community, they buy into it. So it's a big blue house called Cairgeden.
Okay.
And so essentially, let's say you're in Dublin, you're on drugs.
Yeah.
Through Edie or Stephen, you got referred to the men's center or the women's center. Then you stay up there for 9 months or 6 months. Sorry, it's 6 months, and then you go to aftercare.
Right.
In Greystones. So essentially, you have this very wealthy town.
Yeah.
And they have this big blue house with a bunch of ex-addicts. And yet they don't see it that way. They know them by their names because they're all part of the community. They all work. There's a social enterprise called Rise at the Cove.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a very successful coffee shop. And they use all that money for, the youth cafe and different things like that. And they give back to the community. But the most important thing is they're not seen as ex-addicts. They're seen as part of the community whilst they're there. So in a sense, that's the biggest thing. You have a very structured system that works, that allows people to get upskilled, while at the same time, they're just members of the community.
Yeah.
Until they're ready to go back to, suppose maybe where they come from, or maybe somewhere else, doesn't matter. Then they go back a different person.
Yeah. Can we talk about you finding Tiglin? I just keep coming back to that point. if you're homeless in this city at the moment, how do they find out about your services?
If you're homeless in the streets and you go to even one of the places, you're gonna find out about all the other ones. It's a very small world.
But what does it look like? So say somebody's out there at the moment, they're homeless, and they hear about Tiglin.
Yeah.
How do they reach out, and how do you handle, a multicultural society in Ireland where maybe English is not their first language? How is that catered to? I'm really interested in that aspect of making sure that maybe people come here, they don't speak English. How is that handled? I'm sure you probably don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But I'd love to understand that aspect of things.
Well, if you're talking about living in the streets and the lighthouse,
yeah,
you have the best team possible, and people speak many languages. So really, is you come there for food,
yeah,
and then you keep coming back for various different reasons. Maybe it's the social aspect. Oftentimes, it is the social aspect.
Yeah.
And then people are gonna tell you, if we have a chat with you, I'm gonna tell you, oh, this is an option for you, or that's an option for you, and something that works for you might not work for that guy, but it's that daily engagement that allows for people to get to know all the services. Now, obviously, you have leaflets and everything.
Yeah.
But the key is really getting to know people by their name and interacting with them daily.
So, for people listening who aren't familiar with any of these services, what does it look like when do they have to register with Tiglin? Like, do they have to fill in paperwork to become, under the care of Tiglin? What does that look like? Or is it just a case of a drop in whenever you feel like it and get to know and build relationships?
Right. There's a little bit of a distinction here between being Tiglin's care and using the Lighthouse service.
Okay.
So the Lighthouse service is a drop-in center for anyone.
Yeah.
So people off the street come in and they use the service, and that's it. There's no strings attached.
Yeah.
Now, this changes if you want to go to rehab. So, like I said, about 90% of people in the streets, it's either addiction or trauma, both. The combination of two is 100% of the time.
Do you want to go down this way, or do you want to go through Trinity?
Let's go
through Trinity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then you get, the way it works is, let's say you decide you want to go to rehab today. You're going to do an assessment, a comprehensive assessment, to see if that's for you. When that's finished, you show up at the Lighthouse for a weekly meeting. I call it a weekly meeting, check-in meeting. They call them pre-entry groups.
Yeah.
Until there's a bed available. At the same time, you have to call the center once a day to check in. Whoever calls the most is on the top of the list.
Whoever calls the most?
Yeah, so you have to show you're willing.
Okay.
Once you do that and there's a bed available, they send you down to the rehab center. And they have counseling there, they have sauna there, gym. It's a very structured program where you wake up at 7, you make your bed, you have your breakfast, and then you do classes all day.
Where is this now?
So it's in Wicklow Mountains.
Wicklow Mountains, okay.
So you get to learn about trauma, you get to learn about all these coping mechanisms until the program is finished.
Right.
So it's the longest program in the country, and according to the stats, it's the most successful kind of recovery rate.
What's that called again?
Tiglin. It's called Men's Center. Tiglin's Men's Center.
Okay.
Men's Rehabilitation Center.
And there's one for the women as well, is there?
There's one for the women on the seafront, British Bay.
Oh,
yeah.
We'll cross over here when there's no traffic.
So, and then you're in Tiglin's care.
Yeah. Can I ask,
yeah.
like, there's separation there between men and women. We could probably get into the area of, like, trans support. But generally speaking, if the husband and wife are both homeless and they both want to do that, how is that handled?
Well, a man goes to the men's center, a woman goes to the women's center, and then there's aftercare centers for both men and women.
Okay.
And I suppose I was talking about the comprehensive assessment. A lot of the times that's to do with drugs, kind of drugs in your system.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into that because I don't know enough.
Yeah.
But if it's a husband and wife and they want to go into rehab together, I'm not sure if that's going to work.
Okay.
Number one. But number two, maybe there's a different center that...
they can do that.
Yeah.
All right. So after they've gone through that process, what's the involvement rate with Tiglin then? Like, is there, they've moved on to the next stage? Is there an infrastructure there to support them as they transition?
Okay, so number one reason why people relapse is because they do the program. Oftentimes it's 12 weeks.
Right.
Very short. And then they go back to where they're from. And they go back to everything. So the reason why Tiglin's program is successful because it's a long-term program, but then you get to stay in Greystones for 6 months at least. Some people stay longer actually. And you're not just thrown out back to where you're from.
Yeah.
And then you do work, you do college, you do whatever you want. And that's why it's successful. And even if there's so many kind of people who go into the community. At Brona, that's her name. She does outreach in all these different communities. So really, even if you've left the program and you need something, you can always get in touch and people will work with you.
Okay. So let's talk about the work that you and Jay are doing at Tiglin at the moment. You mentioned that there's quite a lot of people working there. But generally, you're in charge of the Lighthouse. Can you talk to me about why it's called the Lighthouse, first of all?
Okay, well, the Lighthouse was started back in the 80s by a charity called Dublin Christian Mission. Yeah. So it's just a reference to the scripture, kind of this verse from the Bible.
Okay. So it's a beacon, effectively, like a place to help guide people away from...
I suppose, yeah, it's a place
of... a metaphor.
It's a place of hope.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're the manager of the Lighthouse.
Yeah.
What other aspects in Tiglin basically are there to support people in that journey? We're just going to pass through here. A lot of tourists. I'll ask the question now in a sec. So we're on our way to the Lighthouse. We're going to have a quick look outside. Full life of Dublin.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the Lighthouse. We mentioned there before, it's not just a place to drop in for food. It's a place for people to network, for people to get ahead. How often and how long do people avail of the services typically?
So, look, that's a very interesting question because of the answer.
Yeah.
There is no typical person who ends up on the street and uses the Lighthouse. There's so many different types. And at the moment, from all over the world, actually. Some people will end up on the street for a few weeks. I've seen students. I've seen tourists. I've seen people who are 18. And all they need is just a small bit of help because they might be working, they might be studying, and maybe they're with you for a few weeks, for a few months, just using the service for food or clothing. Other people might need a little bit more time. And then there's the last group, and I call it long-term homelessness. And let me explain to you why that's in a different category for me. Short-term homelessness is a person who ends up on the street and moves on fairly quickly and you don't see them again. They have, they might have other supports, but they might be, self-sufficient. And then there's a group of people who stay on the street for more than 1 year. And generally, like I said before, it's addiction or trauma.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between 1 year and 10 years. Now, there's a high probability if you've been on the street for 1 year, you'll be there in 10 years.
Okay.
And the only way you can get those people off the street is by a very comprehensive system that will show them what's possible. Because that world, if you're not careful, will grab you and pull you down and you'll never get out.
Okay.
And if it wasn't for such centers, people would never leave.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Because when you see a person that goes through rehab, through Tiglin's program, and to see where they're coming from to where they're ending up, it's so vast. And the way I put it is like this. Let's say you're a normal person, you end up on the street, and now you get back and you're working and you're successful. You essentially climbed out of this big of a hole. But because you're born with this disease of addiction, let's say, now the mountain you have to climb, it's unimaginable.
Yeah.
So you've climbed so much more than just to be at the same level.
Yeah.
So I meet people with various different challenges. And just for them to reach the same level, we all had to climb a certain mountain. But for certain people, it's really, really like, yeah, it's so...
So tackling addiction is at the core.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask about the strategy around Tiglin? Is that something that you're involved in? You know, where the organization is going in 5 years? Is that something that you can speak to? Like, how do you sort of adapt the service?
Well, the result of the work that you see today, it's all been organic because of the certain needs. So one of the things that Aubrey talks about is when you get people into rehab, some of them are functioning actually. So you have functioning alcoholics, for example.
Yeah.
And they're working, and then they go to rehab, and now they're looking to get back to work. And what's happened was they worked for 10 years, and now there's this gap of 1 year.
Yeah.
So when they started working, when Tiglin started working with addiction, they realized, oh, there's a gap there. You can't just have a gap in your CV. So they started working with community employment schemes,
right,
to get people working. And now there's no gap. Now you worked, in Tiglin, for example. Another thing was the aftercare. When you do everything for people, then they go back to where they're from, and now they're back on drugs. Obviously, something doesn't work.
Yeah.
So maybe you need an aftercare place. Once they implemented the aftercare place, now there's less relapses. Education as well. Maybe now you're spending time in Tiglin and you're studying at the same time. Now there's something to show for it. So all these things that happened, none of it was planned, but it was more so organic and addressing the needs that you see as you're implementing a new approaches, let's say.
Okay. So who helps shape the service and any modifications to the services that Tiglin are responsible for? Is that something yourself and Jay and Aubrey and they collaborate on? Like if there's new changes, new improvements that need to be made, how is that done?
Well, look, you have the management structure. So, but I think a lot of it is done bottom up, because you see the need, you see the needs, and as long as you address the needs, by kind of a, let's say, feedback approach, you see the results of those changes.
Okay.
So, but the results speak for themselves, I would say.
And can we speak to those results? Like understanding the results will help. We're close by to Lighthouse now, I think.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the achievements of Tiglin. Like in the results, the last kind of financial year, if you want, what does that look like?
Well, like you can talk about it in terms of public exposure and all that, but I don't think that's really the measuring stick. Across the two centers, you have, let's say, 70 people in treatment, and you have further 40 people in the aftercare. And then obviously there's other centers as well that do other work. So you essentially have 100 people who were living in the streets. And I suppose what's the opposite of surplus actually when you're kind of taking
Excess.
Is it the excess? I suppose there were a little bit of the excess of society, just taking. And now you've turned that around where they're actually giving.
Okay.
So that's a huge net positive for any society.
Yeah.
And as long as they keep making those right moves, people become successful. They still have to deal with those, I suppose, addiction genes. But there's many people that are, over the years, there's been, I think, maybe 1,500 people who successfully graduated. And now they're out there working. They're not ambassadors of Tiglin, not necessarily, but they're the end result of their work. And I think that's huge.
Yeah.
And that's how you measure it for me, really, rather than.
I'm going to ask you a bit of a weird question, right? You might say they've all been weird, Gerry. But if you had to think about the Tiglin recipe that you'd like to be able to share with other organizations like Tiglin who support people in homelessness, what are the key ingredients for that recipe?
Okay, well, Aubrey was actually speaking in Navan the other day, and it was this rehab center, and essentially what that place was, it was a rehab center that would do the program, and that's it. That's the end of the road. And humans are much more complex. Humans, as you know, they're very complex, very social creatures, and it requires a lot more work and support for a person to become independent. The way you can equate it to is raising a child. It seems to me that it's so complex to create a good person. It's a lot easier to create a bad person who's entitled and they think they deserve everything.
Yeah. You have to guide me, by the way, here.
Oh, we're going straight.
Yeah, okay.
So really, it starts with leadership, I suppose. It starts with people who know what they're doing, people who have all the experiences. But beyond that, it's, let's say, developing a community first and foremost, because then people are part of something. And when they're part of something, you're all in the same boat. But there also has to be a logical approach to it. You have to think about at least one step ahead, because you can do all this work with people, and if there's no logic to it, nothing's going to change, because they're all going to end up where they came from. So that's my assessment of the Tiglin model.
Okay.
But then little by little, you get to empower people. And now when they have the power, when they have, their skills, they improve your service.
Yeah.
So one person will improve one aspect, another person will improve another aspect, and now you have 100 people changing everything for the better.
Yeah. I have another question that's a bit left field, and I'm kind of leaning into you because my mic, we had a bit of an audio problem. But as regards trauma and working with people with trauma, what are the key things that you need to keep at the front of your mind when you're interacting with people with trauma from your own experience?
Yeah, well, look, I would have a similar experience myself. It's very hard to trust people, at least when you're starting out. So you almost have to be domesticated in a sense, because in many ways you're a wild animal, and that It's like working with a horse, for example. The horse has to trust you at first. And so it's just a long process. And that's why places like the Lighthouse are important, because you can actually spend a lot of time with people and you can build that trust.
Right.
Because if it's just a factory, people are just numbers, and then you lose out on the work that actually matters.
Yeah.
So nothing happens in a day, and we just carry on day by day. And I find that if you're doing your best, anyone that's doing their best, you see the results down the road.
Yeah.
So you just do your best every day.
Okay.
But also, like I was saying, you need the right people.
You need the right people.
Yeah.
If you had to give us a couple of tips on finding those right people, what advice would you give to people, like, to find the right people? What does that mean?
Well, number one is obviously leadership. You have to, you need the right person at the helm of it all. Like, undoubtable. But number two is you also have to create a joint mission, in a sense. People want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. Yeah. And when you see something that's of great quality, and you see what people are doing, you see the mission, you want to be part of that world. Yeah. So if you have a product that isn't great, you're going to attract lesser kind of versions of people. But if you have the best product, then you attract the best people. Now, the problem with the NGOs is there's two ways I can talk about this. I'll start with this. Number one is you can't just get a person from college, from Trinity College, for example. Yeah. They just graduated, get them here, think they're gonna do well. Doesn't work like that. There will be shark-infested waters. But number two is you need, what was I gonna say? My first point was more important than the second, but I had to start with the second one.
That's all right. Yeah, the shark-infested waters, getting somebody out of Trinity.
Okay, well, I'll just say this then. The right people for what you're doing are already out there.
Yeah.
So you just need to make sure you get the person who's well suited for what you're doing.
The culture of your organization.
Yeah, I almost find it that it's almost like a mix. You have to find the right person who can fit in, but also a person that's going to bring something to the table. And if you're talking, actually, no, I remember what the second point was.
Is it over here, Tiglin?
No, we just passed it.
All right, let's walk back that way.
But let me tell you what the second point was. If you're talking about...
Across here. Talking about hiring the right people.
No, I'll tell you what the other point was, which is very important.
Oh, go on. Yeah.
So if you're talking about the NGOs,
yeah,
it's the funding is always very limited.
Yeah.
And obviously it's very messy work. So sometimes it happens that the best of the best, they're not interested in joining this world.
Right.
So sometimes you're left, you work in this field, and the most competent people, it's very easy for them to go into an industry that's more clean.
Yeah.
So when you combine that with my previous point that I said, you need to find obviously the best person for the job, the person who, they're not necessarily from college, they have real life experience, but at the top of it all, you have to find the best person you can possibly find and make sure they stay there. And how do you do that? I find that if you give people autonomy and ownership, it's almost like this. You're starting out and starting a new initiative.
Yeah.
You plan it out. You do it your way. You bring your experience and knowledge. And you take the full ownership of it. And then you're going to give your best.
Absolutely love that.
Do you want to see inside or?
I love that.
Yeah,
Possible,
okay.
yeah.
So anyway, there's this. This was one of my ideas actually. It's off now, but it's a neon sign, a bright blue neon sign. So what happens here is the queue gets very, very long. See, all the way to the hotel sometimes.
Yeah.
Most evenings. And people don't know what it is. But important thing about it is if you're a regular person driving to Dublin, from the south side, you're always going down Pierce Street.
Yeah.
They changed the rules
A little bit.
2 weeks ago. But this would be jam-packed with cars. And I said, why don't we do a neon sign that says Tiglin at the Lighthouse? And now every person driving down this road, they see this sign. They don't know what's inside, but they see it.
Yeah.
So in the night when you're driving down, you see all these buildings and then you see this bright blue neon sign with 50 people queuing to get in.
And that queue is really important because it lets people know that there is a problem here. There's demand. It plays a role of visibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't always understand this, but now I know that there are certain issues, and when they're visible,
very important.
you see it. Sometimes it's easy to hide, but to be situated here between all these successful tech companies and Trinity College.
Yeah.
There's a hotel there, a very famous hotel. This is very out of place, but in a sense, it works.
That's good. We're going to the side door.
Yeah. Hello. I'm just being interviewed, so this is Rachel, by the way. She's on the
I'm Gerry. Nice to meet you. We're doing a podcast. This guy is great, isn't he? He's a superhero.
Hi guys. Hi. So this is the cafe.
So cool.
So if you look at the sign over there, there's just one of the things of organized there. So the South African embassy gonna bring their food, their staff, their musicians, and then we're gonna have a whole event out of it.
This is so cool.
So this is it really. You sit about 40 people.
Yeah.
And like I said, big queue outside, people come in. As 2 people are leaving, there's 2 available seats, 2 new people come in.
Nice.
But you should see this place. It doesn't take much to fill it up.
Yeah.
You can barely fit. But once you have a musician here and you have other activities, it changes. The way I came up with this term, I say it's a homeless cafe. What that is when you're talking about places like this, a term that's easy to use is a homeless shelter. And I think that's kind of pretty self-explanatory as to the change. One kind of approach is very basic, the other one takes everything into account.
Yeah.
So,
but this is so cool. Without being kind of too discriminatory, it doesn't look like a homeless cafe. Surely, because of the tourism kind of flow of people here, do you get people coming in here looking to purchase food? Is that an option as well?
No, but I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
A few times people joined the queue thinking it was a nightclub.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Because it's beautiful. It's as nice as any other place, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
For people to feel like, actually, you know what? I'm not going into a school canteen. They're going into somewhere where they're shown respect, and they're being heard, and they're being seen, and they're being well fed and well looked after.
Yeah, it's certainly a unique place and a unique approach.
Cool. This is amazing. Can we see downstairs?
Yeah,
please.
So, hey, Owen. So I'll show you this thing actually. Don't know if it's relevant to you, but this was just a plain piece of wood, and you kind of try to make the most out of everything. This is what clothes kind of comes out from, and Irish for 1,000 welcomes.
What's downstairs?
So downstairs we have the offices, and then we have fridge and freezer and old storage.
Nice.
So let me just show you the storage first. So this is, for example, the barber's chair.
Brilliant.
So it's all voluntary based. So let's say you have barbers in every day. Every day you'll give out per service 10 haircuts.
Okay. And what about showers? That's a big thing.
Showers is a different. We don't have showers.
You don't have showers here?
Yeah. So this is kind of the clothing part. So clothing is huge, because you can't wash your clothes anywhere.
Yeah.
If you live in the street, that's one of the things. You have to keep reusing the stuff you get from places like this.
Yeah.
So donations come in, you sort them, put them up, and then later when someone's asking for something, it's easy to find and give it out.
Okay.
So always in need of clothes. And the way I said is men's clothes specifically, because 90% of people who come here are men.
Okay. So can people wash their clothes here?
No,
You don't do that.
I mean, every
So,
square inch is being used. Where do you put a washing machine? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not just one washing machine. It would be like 10, 15 of them.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. It was much bigger than I thought it was going to be. Look, it's been absolutely incredible to speak with you and learn about your perspective. This is an exemplar for what I've seen, and I encourage you to check out Tiglin. Is it possible for people to donate to Tiglin? Is that something that you can do?
Of course, it's all up on the website.
All on the website,
yeah.
And you can do that. And I encourage people to do that. Support, everything that Alan and Jay and Aubrey are doing here, and the rest of the team. They're all doing amazing work. I'll put a link to your LinkedIn, because I think that was how we connected, but also to Tiglin's website for people to follow. Anything else you want to give a shout out to before we wrap up the episode?
No, I think that's all.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.